Okay, so my name is George. So I think that you probably just heard from the opening. So I see. Okay, welcome to this session, breakout room. So I'm a professor here at University of Windsor. So I originally come from China. That's quite a while ago. It's about 20 years ago. So I came as an international student. So that's why the international education is a topic I really interest me in. So I got my PhD from University of Alberta, and then I got a teaching job in City University, New York, before I moved to City here. Okay. So my major area of the research is science education and comparative and international education. That's my research most focused on. Okay, so that's about myself. I think that's a time to start our discussion. So before we get into the discussion questions, I would like all of you probably will take turn to introduce yourself and so your name, position, where are you now, and your research interest, expertise, if you want to share that with us. Okay, let's can we do that quickly? And so I start with on my screen. I said Dima. Do you mind unmute yourself and give us a little bit background about yourself, please?
Yes, hi. My name is Dima Zaid Kilani, and I am teaching English for academic purposes at Algonquin College, and I'm teaching in the intensive language program at University of Ottawa. My research interest is about feminism and also the challenges that faces Arabic-speaking teachers of ESL.
Good. Yeah. Welcome, Dima. So next to you is Nadia. Welcome, Nadia.
Hi, how are you? My name is Nadia Hashim. I'm actually the recruitment and retention coordinator at the Odette School of Business here at the University of Windsor. And I'm considering pursuing my PhD in the next couple years. And I'm just exploring various topics as they relate to diversity and inclusion and international students more specifically.
Oh, great. Nadia, welcome to our PhD program.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have a joint PhD program between University of Windsor and Lakehead University and Brock University, right? You know that?
Yes, I do.
That's great. Yeah, our application deadline is November 15. So we're taking students starting summer, July 1st, instead of September 1st.
Okay, wonderful.
Great. So, okay, great. Next, I have Linda, please.
Hello there, everyone. My name is Linda Coltman. I'm a graduate student and a graduate assistant at the University of Windsor. I'm currently pursuing master's degrees in both political science and sociology, and I'm on my way to a PhD in sociology, social justice. And I'm also completing the university teaching certificate program at the University of Windsor. So respective of political science and sociology, my interest is in working with marginalized populations, housing issues, mostly the homeless, poverty reduction issues. And that ties in with my teaching interests. I'm very interested in universal design and accommodations and ways to reduce stigma, but still make it easier for marginalized populations to learn with the curriculum and make things overall better for all students. So pleased to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Lena. So next to you, I have Dr. Coy. Dr. Chairman Coy, you're mute? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Taranum, and I am a faculty in the Department of Chemistry, Biochemistry. And I'm looking forward to hear from everybody here today.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So then I have, sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly. It's the Biswajit Saka, is that right? Saka? Please unmute yourself. Hello?
I think he just said in chat he's having an audio problem.
Oh, okay. Okay, I think I didn't have chat. Okay, great, no problem. Okay, the purpose of this the break room is for us to reflect upon what you listened to participate yesterday, and it's so to explore some potential, okay, future network, or maybe we can work together. So on some of the topic. So that's the purpose for this session. So I start off some questions. So to help us to move along to that goal. So I would like everyone to think about it. Did the research theory or findings presented yesterday align with your personal experience with online teaching during pandemic? What were the similarity? What were the difference? Okay, I assume you attended yesterday's some presentations. So how do you feel? Other people's, the presenters' research findings or personal reflections match up your online teaching experience? Okay, Lena.
My apologies, but I had a conflict, so I couldn't attend yesterday.
Oh, okay.
With that noted, I was just wondering if there's anything in particular you'd like us to refer to. I can kind of assume what some of the things discussed might have been, but if there's anything in particular, if there's anyone else other than me that maybe wasn't able to attend yesterday, or if there's anything you'd like reflection on specifically.
Okay, that's a good question. Let's see who attended yesterday, so maybe you can start the topic, and then you definitely can share your perceptions or your experience. Linda, maybe you can start off. Is there any question you observed, any things you think you want to discuss with the group? That's good too, right?
Okay. Well, I'm actually one of the people presenting this afternoon. I got an idea with my supervisor in sociology in one of my classes this year, because I said early on my interest is universal design, perspective of international students, and we were talking during our sociology course. So I found just in general that the pandemic's impacted all students because the switch to online learning, it was so abrupt, right? And that we didn't have consistency across the board. I know like the University of Windsor was very accommodating as best they could and trying to move things as quickly as they could. But because there was no overarching protocol for how to actually do things online for each course between faculties, within faculties, some professors were teaching, for instance, just totally online without posting their slides, using resources. So students in other time zones are having issues, or students with poor internet connections. Those were common issues. And I mean, that showed up in the research I was doing for my own background for what I'm presenting today. It's consistent worldwide, right? It had a bigger impact on international students because of time zone differences. But for the professors who tried to be as accommodating as possible, for instance, teaching online in right time, but recording their sessions, sharing notes in advance, putting multiple means of engagement, having discussion groups and that, it was easier not only on all students, but specifically on international students, that I think is an important kind of discussion. My takeaway on all of this is, just in general, my kind of outcome for what I'm kind of suggesting is, I think part of the reflection might be in the future as we kind of do these quick switches, also consider what they can mandate to actually suggest that departments and within faculties in general come up with, I would say, universal design principles of multiple methods of engagement, multiple forms of producing materials, doing things in advance, doing great outlines on syllabuses, and being considerate up front of things like time zone differences and accommodations, so you don't need to backload them. I realize, for instance, the University of Windsor has a wonderful student accessibility services department, but just even talking accommodations with those ones that are mandated by provincial guidelines, the more students need to use them and make requests, the more stigmatizing it is. The idea is to get away from that and try to be accommodating in your course planning, your course design, and your course kind of follow through as you're going through the curriculum to make it better for all students all across the board. And what helps the students generally helps those specifically that have the most engagement needs. And I will kind of cite that back to international students at the moment and students with disabilities probably, if that's helpful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you, Linda. I know. So you were taking that course, right?
Well, I took a course with Dr. Omarodian on family politics and gender relations. And because I have an interest in universal design, we were talking about just the COVID and how things were playing out. And as part of my course, I decided to do research tied in on the pandemic effects and teaching. And that's what I'm presenting on this afternoon, is the idea of universal design and how we can make curriculums better for international students. Just in general ideas, I'll be discussing that at 2:20 with the group E then. Kind of basically a 10-minute overview of kind of what I've just said in depth, and then submitting a paper for the conference for the June 25th deadline with my full research outlined with Dr. Omarodian's oversight. So we thought it was an important topic, specifically noting the issues of international students in our course curriculum and just in general with our discussions of class. So.
Well, that's great, Lena. I look forward to your presentation.
Thank you.
You point out actually a number of issues. So yesterday, my group presented a study. The study, we particularly focus on international students' online learning experience. So we interviewed about 15 international students. I think we found the similar issues as you point out. So this really faculty member were pushed on to the online learning suddenly because of a pandemic, and some professors were prepared, better than others. I do heard some students complain, as you find out. The professors, they complain the different issues. Okay, some students said, the professors only put up the slide, and then the students are expected to just read the slide and learn. And so in your case is that some professors even didn't post the slide. So I think that's really hard for students.
The other issue, and it's going in my paper, so we only have 10 minutes to discuss things today. But I found, and again, I did lit review for globally as well as not really. We didn't have a chance to interview University of Windsor students per se. We did the global research and kind of what was showing up in media as well. But the whole issue of just general accommodations, for instance, timed exams are an issue. We can't just assume everyone has the same strength internet connection. So time zones are a big issue. but it's also that whole issue about how rigid you're going to be when you're doing things like timing exams or having submissions or counting attendance and participation, recognizing one that even locally in Canada, students have different difficulties based on means that are beyond their control because of the internet provision. And that's not even getting into the financial aspect of being able to afford internet connectivity and computer mechanics and that to be able to do things. And beyond that, international students again face bigger barriers because some of them are from countries where they were restricted. Specifically, we found students from China and that had different things about access. So if you tell a student to go on YouTube as part of the curriculum and let's say watch something and they can't access it, that becomes a big barrier to their education if you haven't planned these out or thought out alternatives, right?
Yes.
So that's another kind of key thing that the university didn't have guidelines, for instance, considering the University of Windsor, that it was left to the students to decide, whether they complain and ask questions and ask for help or beg or kind of go with the flow in those courses that weren't accommodating, that had things strictly regimented. And if you could do something, fine. If you couldn't, you ended up losing percentages on your grade point average, right? So that's a very big one too.
I know, definitely. I taught the online course is last semester, winter semester. Half of my class coming from China. So my class is at 5 to 8 in the evening. So I try to arrange time to accommodate both Canadian students and the international student. In my case, it's most international students from China. So still, 5 o'clock in the evening here, it's 5 o'clock in the morning in China. I think the time difference definitely is one of the challenge. And another, the more significant challenge you're talking about is that accommodations. In my case, I feel that because I teach education courses, we require them to read a lot and write a paper. We don't have exam, we have final papers. Probably most of you know that international students, and include Chinese students, they usually have the language problem, difficulties. So that without coming here, they just take online courses. So we couldn't help them much with their, writing support. So that's a big challenge I feel I had. So the things I can do is really just to give them kind of more flexible deadlines, give them more time to finish the assignment. And then also I give them chance to send over their draft. I provide feedback to them. So that's something I did to try to accommodate that international student need. So I know, I'm pretty sure that there's some other strategy we can do to help our international students. Let's see our colleagues, other colleagues have any comment on this international students online teaching. Anybody want to champion at this moment? Dima, have you been teaching the courses, online courses for international students? Nadia, please. I saw your hands up. Please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Linda. I think the points that you're bringing up are really interesting. And from the advising side, I did note that many international students had a hard time speaking up to their professors and letting them know of some of the barriers that they were encountering while being online. I even had a student who, because he didn't have the right credit card, could not purchase his textbook and never even told his professor that he didn't even have access to the material. He tried to make arrangements on his own to find someone who could purchase the textbook for him in North America. But I tried to work with students to advocate for themselves. And I said, this is a legitimate issue that you have. And I'm sure other students are encountering it. Like, why is it that you didn't bring it forward? And he just didn't want to be perceived as someone that was making excuses, or someone that didn't want to engage, and was embarrassed almost that he couldn't access the textbook, or he didn't have a credit card that could be used to purchase the textbook. So I do think that your point is well made, and that when we are making a move to online, we just need to make sure that students can access the information that we need them to be able to be successful in the classroom.
Oh, yeah, that's a very good point. Very good point. In my teaching, I think that I realized the similar issues. For example, ordering textbook. We usually post the course allowance to students in 1 week before the course start. But in this case, during the pandemic, during student in China, so I posted my syllabus 3 weeks ago. So this way, students know which textbook I'm going to use, and then so they have more. They have excuse me. They have enough time to go online to buy books, so they can mail to them, or they can buy electronic version of the book. I think that's definitely. I'm glad I realized that, but I'm pretty sure not every professor probably realize these issues. Okay, Linda, please.
Just responding to that, this wasn't part of the research I did, but my personal experience, because I was a GA over 3 terms this pandemic, twice for a criminology course and just recently for a stats course for intercession, the intensive. And I was surprised by the majority of our students. We found out early on with that first course in the fall, majority of Canadian students, not only international, couldn't afford to purchase the textbook or couldn't access it. And what we had to do is we basically had to change the course. Thankfully, we realized early enough most of the students had either jobs or their OSAP was delayed, but the issues was they were working in sectors where they lost hours and didn't have income, right? International students, it was access issues. But the whole course had been designed using that as an integral part of a take-home exam and an integral part of the teaching. So we quickly figured out with Ledi Library scanning chapters and doing different things and finding free accesses. But it's again, the students didn't speak up. It was just through kind of noticing things on submissions and assignments we asked. And the same just even recently with this most recent statistics course, the book is over $140. And students, for some reason, were having issues just accessing it with restrictions for pandemic, with bookstores being closed and online not availability for ordering, different issues. So we realized we had a big problem. So what we did ended up benefiting all in both cases. But without those asking, the class average, our class average just on the first assignment, we got rid of it for the first criminology course, but it dropped a good 20-odd%. But I shudder to think what happened in those courses where professors didn't ask and students stayed quiet when there were these kind of issues, knowing full well, and I'm sure there were on many campuses across this country and across the world, where students are directly impacted in their future by their grades just for those issues of textbooks tied into a syllabus curriculum that seemingly was mandated to do the online switch. And one other thing, just if you don't mind me copying to what you mentioned about the writing papers, that was something I found in my actual research about the plagiarism, and I cite University of Windsor as well, personal experience because it tied in with my research. That safe assign detector at University of Windsor is horrid because it catches the students who again have simple issues and flags them as plagiarism, when really it's up front the instructors should have told students what their expectations were, I think, and provided resources for how to cite and what their expectations were, rather than assuming blindly that between faculty, students, no differences of expectations, and just going into any year, especially with the online methods and not class instruction. I was realizing that with my first 2 semesters that, and again, thankfully you realize these things, but some people don't, that students were getting flagged for things that weren't true plagiarism, not intentional, but more issues of not having the knowledge of the expectation of the current university protocols at Windsor. But if you just go by those statistics for what a plagiarism detects, the students then are kind of left with dealing with academic dishonesty and penalties and departmental stuff that again becomes very unfair when on the upfront end, the instructors could have actually outlined stuff in a syllabus, had a discussion, offered hours for help, offered examples, and offered things like, for instance, at the Letty Library, our resources at the University of Windsor, or offered online guides like the OWL resources or different things, right? There are easy ways to be proactive about addressing it rather than actually penalizing students on the back end.
Well, that's another good point, Nina. The plagiarism. I definitely agree with you. That's international students bring in the different definition of the plagiarism. I know in China, when we ask them to write a paper, as long as the paper written with a consistent structure and logical reasoning and self-support, make self-support statement, and that's a good paper. So that's teachers do not really care where the statement comes from or it's generated by the author itself. So here we know we do that differently. I think that's definitely something we need to let international students know. Instead of, as you said, we publish them at the end without telling them in the front. That's one of our graduate students. I participated in a supervision. Take this topic called the international students understanding of the plagiarism as their master thesis topic. Doing research on that. That's great. Okay, I see the hand. Dima's hand up. Dima, please.
Yes, I actually teach a lot of international students, so accommodation and online teaching was very important. What I do with my student is at the beginning of the course, I make sure that I go over our platforms and I make sure that they know how to navigate them. So I share my screen and I go step by step, and I even sometimes extend it not only in the first day but also maybe the first 2 classes. And trust me, they still will have question until the end of the course about the platform and different ways, or for example, how to access assignments or to do different kind of things. For example, today I had it's my last class in one of the courses, and one of the students just had difficulties accessing her books and assignment online. So we had, after class, I stayed with that student to go through changing her password 2 times and to check what's the problem. So until the last day, you will have different problems from the student. During the course, I try to divide the students into smaller groups just to make sure that they are able to share their opinion. And I make sure that they are comfortable with their group members as well. If I see that one of the students always quiet or not comfortable, I make sure to keep moving them, and I visit their groups just to see and sense if they are comfortable or not. I give my student options how to do their projects. If there is a project, if they would like or prefer to do it as pairs or group work or individual. And I also ask them how they prefer to deliver it. Would they like to present it during the classroom? Would they like to record it and share it with us? Or maybe sometimes they have both of the options together. They will share it, and at the same time they will have something recorded. So I give them this kind of flexibility just to make sure that they are comfortable. I try to use creative assignments, such as I ask them to find a job post that it's valid and it's online, and I ask them to write a resume according to that job post. And then I ask them to be prepared for an interview specifically for this job. So something interesting, and that will make them engaged and interested to do the assignment. If I see that many of my students don't have the book, and for example, this term I had 2 classes this way that many of my students couldn't purchase the book, I scanned the chapters that I will be covering, and I post them on online. And I created a section that called book chapters, and I just posted, because it's too big to scan all the book, just the chapters that I will be covering. This is what I do. It's just very important for them to be able to feel that they are safe, and they are able to participate and share their opinions, and that they are heard. And it's not group work, and to be in a different organization, let's say, or learning. It's very difficult for our international student. It's a new learning environment and a new learning style. So I try as much as possible to make it easy for them. So this is my input on this.
Oh, that's wonderful, Dima. You have done great things, many great things.
Thank you, George.
Yeah, just a quick question for you is that when you're teaching it online courses, you seems like you taught it in a format of synchronous format or asynchronous format. So how do you divide the time between meeting students?
So I use both synchronous and asynchronous. I make sure that everything is posted online for the student before classroom. For example, what to expect this week. Everything will be divided in terms of material and assignments, so that they are aware of what to expect, and that we will have online classes, and I will be available with them. But at the same time, they will have some kind of extra links or activities to work on after classroom.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's great. So you post the detailed information about the class schedule, about reading, so to keep students on schedule. How often do you meet them?
So I usually meet my student once or twice every week. It depends on the course, and between some courses 3 hours, some courses 5 hours or 6 hours, and I will give give them between let's say 1 to 2 hours for them to work by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's great. Thank you, Dima. I think that's so. My next question, I think, is following what we have said. How different should classroom and the teachings be in the online settings? Can most of it stay the same, or do you think it needs to a large shift? So that's compared between online teaching and the face-to-face teaching. So that's some people may think, oh, okay, we just move stuff I used to do to online. And what big shift do you think, when we move from face-to-face teaching to online teaching, what big change we need to make sure our teaching is still effective in the online context? I know we have discussed some good ideas, Linda and Dima, and then Nadia also provide some practical issues. Is there any quick thought about what change we should to make for moving from in-person class to online class? What big things we should pay attention to? Okay, Linda. Yeah.
Well, my big issue just in general was the lack of departmental oversight or a lack of a faculty oversight to setting guidelines. Because it's, again, I don't think it should be for the students to have to complain for the process. I think there should be certain considerations that departments and faculties themselves take into consideration, knowing the student component. For instance, the University of Windsor alone is about 25% international students. So that going into this, we know is going to have issues about time shifting and time zone issues, as well as access issues. That's just clear for general knowledge. So without those guidelines to kind of put it for individual professors and their individual assistants to deal with these things on the fly, makes it then an irregular kind of performance for students for accessing things course by course, department by department, year by year. And it's, again, the impact it has overall on grades and on the future of learning contributes to overall issues of your degree and your education, right? So that's why I think we have actually protocols for what we expect students to learn within their course curriculum, within their degrees. I think now, especially now that we've had this pandemic, we should have those departmental curriculums standardizing these type of things. For instance, the synchronous and asynchronous learning, the exam timings, recognizing things like what your basic minimal has to be to acknowledge these differences in students without them having to do individual accommodations and individual requests that could, on the other end, be denied. And I don't want to cite names, it's not fair, but I do know some of my peers who were international students brought a very legitimate request to their professors saying, you're only teaching this course online, you're not posting the recording, you don't want to be recorded. And like you said, I'm at 5 a.m. here, and if I don't have an internet connection working from China, I lose the day. And the professors say, well, that's fine, you lose the day then, you know what the course is, setting up going in. In my opinion, that's an irrational and unfair way to address the issue, and I don't think that should be allowed at the departmental or university level. Yes. I think it has to be taken care of as part of the organization, not as something we assume professors will address individually. I think it has to be standardized.
Oh, okay, great. I think that definitely you mentioned that from the administrative part, what we can do better, definitely give some guidelines, give guidelines to the faculty member who teaching the courses, and that's very important. Very important. For example, when we talk about synchronous and asynchronous, talk about student accessibility issues, combination issues, I think that we should have a policy available to guide the faculty to teach online. Thank you, Linda. I said, Nadia, please.
Yeah, so for me, I think some of the biggest concerns I heard from students were that there was no change. And I think it was okay when it was the first term and many professors hadn't previously taught online, and then they had to move from an in-person modality of teaching to online. But after a course was offered, twice, 3 times, there should have been a pulse check to see how it should have been presented differently or taught differently in an online format. And I think that the practice was just to take what you would have taught in person and just put it online in whatever format, but not actually change how you're presenting the information, or maybe how you're showing material, or how you're going through an actual problem. So I do believe that there should have been pulse checks throughout the term to assess, okay, are students understanding? How are they doing? Could we do anything different in the classroom as the term is going, and not just at the end of it when students didn't perform as they should have or we expected them to. The other point that I wanted to bring, and this came up frequently with students, is what one professor considered synchronous versus what another professor considered synchronous could be different. So as an example, some professors, synchronous was them being live, teaching every presentation, but also recording it. Whereas other professors only had their slides pre-recorded online, but the exam was the student had to be at a certain time online as described in the course outline, like the actual meeting time of the class. And I think that in itself is confusing to students, especially when they're entering a new environment and they're trying to find some similarity, some routine in it all, to just adjust their own schedules, what to expect from the class. And many students didn't realize what the setup of the lectures were, the courses were, until a week or two into the session. So I think it's hard to adjust for students, especially when there's so many variables and so many unknowns and different ways of going about it. And there's no kind of standard or kind of go-to way of approaching it.
Yeah, well, thank you, Nadia. Definitely, it's a very good suggestions. We are being through this online teaching for 1 year now. It's really time for us to look at it, what we did, and how improve in the future online teaching. I think that's exactly what this symposium for. I believe that's exactly the purpose for Linda's and everybody else studies. So we want to, through the study, reflect on the change we made. Okay, is that good change, or how we're going to make the change more successful? I think definitely it's a very very right call, okay, for what we're going to do. Okay, so now I have Dima's hand, please.
Yeah, I just would like to add that teachers' training is very important because we jumped into online teaching suddenly, and training to be able to deliver this for a long time wasn't expected. So I think just moving forward to have more PD sessions for our teachers on online teaching, online assessment, group work is very important. Another thing that I would like to add is to have a good support system for teachers and also for our students in terms of technology and how to, for example, answer specific questions about how they, for example, upload documents, open, record, navigate the online system, submit assignments. So many different things they are not familiar with, or some of the students will miss few classes because they don't know how to access the class online. They need to know and what is the difference between synchronous or asynchronous classes. So to have maybe also sessions for the student just to educate them about the online teaching or learning environment is important.
Well, yes, great, Dima, definitely. That's important. I think that link what just Nadia talking about, between faculties, they even don't have the same definition about what counts as a asynchronous, what kind of synchronous, right? So definitely teacher training, faculty development is very important. I know some of you from University of Windsor here. University of Windsor, we have CTL, we have Open Learning Office. So personally, I feel they have done a great work in the summer to prepare faculty to teach online. But you know, they line up lots of workshops for faculty to participate. But I think we need to do more. That online workshop they offered, you know, mostly focused on technology, okay, technical point. But for the pedagogical point, okay, how they teach well online, use this technology. I think that's even more big things for us to look into it. Different pedagogy, that's some really involve the content delivery or content coverage and how how faculty communicate with students, address their special need and so on. I think that's something really we need to learn from our parents, learn from the sharing like this conference, and improve our online teaching. I have Linda, please.
Oh, just one other thing that's a bit of a pet peeve, because I know I had to help a number of students and my peers these past couple of semesters. Yeah. The syllabus is, at least at the University of Windsor, it's part of departmental protocols to include things, for instance, such as the Student Accessibility Services Access and International Student Center for the international students. They're both wonderful resources at the University of Windsor, and I don't mean to discount them, but I do have a real big issue with the instructors being able to use those as fallbacks. For instance, I'll use the issue of students with disabilities as an example. With the doctors and the way that things went for Canadian-based students, not every student could get into a doctor. They were only doing online or phone appointments, and mental health was very backlogged, and so were physical. If they had to get a doctor's letter for a course to gain accommodations through the SAS, even though SAS was very helpful if there was a connection made and working around that, putting an onus on students and saying there's SAS in the syllabus and that's the procedure, that's what you do, is an unfair burden to the students. And the same with the students with the the International Student Center. I know multiple students that were my graduate peers that used them for issues concerning their internet connectivity, book access, and time zone issues, interceding with their professors, the protocol, the way they were supposed to do that. Again, I know they're very helpful, but it shouldn't be the fallback mechanism as part of the departmental kind of protocol saying we're meeting that need in students. It should be, again, forethought out in planning so that students don't have to jump through hoops and go through and basically essentially beg and ask other departments to serve as their advocates, especially knowing how long that takes. In the case of some of the students with disabilities, you could be halfway through a semester before you get some of it worked out. And the same with the teaching stuff. If you were missing, as Dima was saying, the classes, the access and that, for simple things that could have been dealt with up front, it's a horrendous way to go about your education, and you lose a lot in the long term, not only the course you're in, but over background knowledge for your degree in general, right? So, and students shouldn't have to lose all or part of a year of this because of COVID, because these things were properly kind of put out in curriculums and in planning that way, forcing the students to kind of hop to or just not take education at all and take a year off school.
Well, that's great, Linda. I think you brought up another aspect of how we support student online learning. I think that's so the post-secondary institution definitely need to set up the support system to better serve our international students, not only online, also the offline as well. At this moment, I really want to invite you and including everybody. Nadia, I know you doing the student support there. So Dr. Smith and I, we look for the chapters for the book we co-edited. So one session of the book talking about the support for international students learning online. So if you have the paper developed based on your study, I'd really going to appreciate if you send your manuscript to us to consider to publish in the paper, in the book. So the book going to be published by end of this year, and the book chapter that the manuscript deadline is by end of it's August summer. Okay, great. Okay, Gina, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Gina DePaulo. I'm from the University of Saskatchewan, and I was working in the English language program. And so when we went online, when we were face to face, I did all the orientation and intercultural awareness and cultural activities. So what I found is when we went online and people were distributed throughout the world, what was very interesting, and I drew on Gunnar Wardena et al. And all of their work on building wisdom communities. So I went to this online format, and my classes were adjunct to sort of in addition to the English language classes, so kind of a place to practice English and practice writing and speaking and all of that. And what I found actually was with the online delivery that there was kind of an opportunity for some students who you didn't really hear their voice a lot face to face. You know, they were pretty quiet, but got them onto those discussion boards, and you know, they were just they engaged so much. I used a lot of discussion boards, a lot of kind of community building ideas, and I think that type of thing for international students, when I started to draw more upon their own experience as learners and kind of honoring where they were from or the knowledge that they brought in, kind of a constructivist idea of knowledge. And because I do intercultural skills and intercultural awareness, everybody has that knowledge, and I think that really improved students' experience. It helped them, you know, with their confidence, and really validated their own knowledge coming in. And I think when people feel confident and validated, then they respond better within the learning environment. So yeah, I feel that some of those, you know, what we consider like social or, you know, cultural activities that are outside, like I think there's a danger that we go to in online teaching, that we revert back to the banking method of education, right? Where here's the knowledge, I'm just going to give it to you and put it into your head. But you know, we know in educational pedagogy that this whole idea of constructivism and as we move into a more global society, that there are, you know, this varied knowledges, and that people come in with their knowledges and their experience that they can add, and we build knowledge together. And I think that moving to an online format, you know, we have to be mindful that that's something that we want to do, you know, and so there are places where it's kind of easier to do that, you know, not so technical of subject matter or whatever, but I think in all courses that there should be some element of that. Anyway.
Okay. Great, Tina. I really thank you for sharing the insight of the online teaching. I definitely, I feel that some of that you said about pedagogical strategies really wonderful. It's not only applied to online learning, but I think applied to the in-person learning as well. For example, you know, as instructor, you should know where the student international come from. Should really let them to contribute to the class discourse, bring their personal knowledge into the discussion. I think that's very powerful ideas to engage students So we always talking about, when we look at the international students, we have to stay away from just the deficit model to look at them. We all know that international students need support. They have, but that doesn't mean they couldn't contribute to the class discourse. So that's what you described is just it's definitely absolutely correct. Again, when we're talking about the cultural responsive pedagogy, that's wonderful. Yeah.
You mentioned the deficit model, and really what I found is that it was totally the opposite. In fact, the value that the students brought from their own cultural perspectives, from their own cultural knowledges, from their own situatedness in their lives, was such a richness. And I think about a lot at our university. I know there's a lot of group work that's done in classes, business, in every department, a lot of group work, and you have international students, and I work in language, so I know that there's often the barriers are you're too shy, or you don't want to speak up, but the value that those students can bring into those group work situations is so high. And finding a way to kind of flip that deficit model into a valued model, when we can value the different cultural perspectives and different experience, because students do come with a lot of that, a lot of they hold a lot when they come into the classroom, and the coming together of students from different perspectives actually is, again, like it increases value as people come together. So facilitating that kind of interaction, I think, is an important thing to remember online as well as in person, as you're saying.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Definitely, yes. So I teach in education department. So our courses involve the education policy, education system, comparative study of education, and so on. So really, we do have a lot of opportunities for the international student to contribute in the class. If we really want to engage students and make them feel they are part of the community, and then there are a lot of opportunity, a lot of things instructor can do. Okay, so in other words, I would say if a university want to, internationalize its curriculum, then teacher have to change the way they look at it. Okay, what the content I should cover. So why don't you just relook at it, re-examine the content covered before, and bring the more content from the international student homeland, and talk about the cases from there, and right, yeah. Okay, great. Any other contribution towards this? Okay, when we move from in-person learning to online learning, what big change we need to do? So that's is there any further comment to that? Okay, so at this moment, I want to move on to next questions. I think we have 20 minutes left. So what do you think the future holds regarding online learning? Do you think it will go back to the way it was before the pandemic, or will we see a great demand for online or open learning? So that's a question I put it here. So I know hopefully the pandemic is going to be over. Do you think that everything going to go back to where it stand before the pandemic, or you think it's going to be different? Okay, Linda.
If you don't mind, I'm going to comment on your prior question as well as this one.
No
I
problem.
think one of the issues was tied in with your prior one, the lack of options. I think a lot of professors made the option take it or leave it. we've gone online. This is what the teaching year is going to be. If you don't like it, take the semester off. And I don't think that's a fair approach to take, especially for international students, recognizing the difficulties and recognizing the large component amount they make up of our Canadian universities. For instance, 25% at the University of Windsor. It is a fact we need to accommodate them. It needs to be integral in the design of the courses and the design of the curriculums. As to the future, I know in Canada, or at least in Ontario, we're talking about hybrid going into the fall. I think what's probably we're going to see, both because of factors such as things that affected the international students, as well as students with disabilities and others, I think we're going to see a large component of students choosing the online learning as the best approach because it's convenient and because of health risks and because of other access issues, right? But I think kind of we have to plan on that, and I think we have to acknowledge then that we have to offer multiple modalities of how we teach and approach, not only to benefit. Someone else earlier talked about students' ways of learning, recognizing that some learn better by watching a video, others learn by reading, others by participating directly like us talking. Integrating all those concepts into course design and providing alternatives for the students, not only just in terms of online or in-person education, but into how the course and the assignments flow in general. My fear is that we'll stick with the online learning component now as the majority way of teaching without making those changes to our curriculums and our course designs, and we'll essentially end up with compounded problems that we've seen this year going forward for all students towards their end of their degrees and beyond. And I think for many, I've been seeing it just in the students I'm overseeing. There's been grade point drops. And I don't think that all deals with social isolation. I think that has to do just to the curriculum changes on the fly and not every student being able to learn the same way, going from growing up with a classroom mentality, being classroom book-based learning, one-on-one instruction, to an online modality that is a very different way of learning. I think we're seeing the differences just in how students' grades are playing out now. And it's, again, I think we have to address that so that it doesn't continue where we have a different gradated kind of one for the students who could quickly adapt to the all or nothing approach of online learning and ones who couldn't. Because I think we're going to lose a lot of students. I really feel sorry for the younger generation. I'm not. I went back to school to get my degrees in my 30s here for my master's, my PhD to start. But for 18, 19, 20-year-olds, that's a very difficult switch to ask them to make. And their whole future career, future earnings, future life is dependent upon what we do now. So that's my greatest fear, is that it will become that all or nothing and we'll have a new, different, gradated kind of have not class just based on how we kind of go about this switch. So
okay, that's well said, Linda. So from what you said, I feel that universities should offer more options to the future students. Just online, definitely is more online, offer more online courses. So that will help the students who, they couldn't come to the class physically. So what you mentioned that about high flex, then that's university going to do in the fall. So that's a tryout format. So that's a combination between in-person and the online format. I feel that format is brought up is still because pandemic issues. So we have to limit the class size. We have to consider some students want to come to the class, some students do not. So that's high flex model. That's how that model brought up. But think further, if we think about this pandemic is completely over. So what kind of new format we're going to offer to students? And how big portion of the courses we're going to offer online? I think that's all the big questions need to look forward. Okay, Linda, I see your hands still there, so you have further comments?
Just one other thing, since we're talking about international students specifically, I really value the participation of my international student peers. I learn a lot from them and really appreciate them in my classes. Yes. Going forward, though, I think one big concern I have about that is there's been a lot of visa issues, a lot of travel restrictions, and then all of these other issues. It's getting harder and harder for international students to actually come to Canada now. Going forward, I also don't want to see international students by force and necessity being only able to participate online. I think there should be intercession so that they can actually participate in person and help kind of facilitating their doing that. And I don't know, I know from the ones that I knew personally this year, they weren't receiving that from sources as easily as you would hope they would. If they were already in Canada, to stay or to kind of deal with those issues, or to get here. It became very problemsome and difficult. So I would acknowledge that too. I don't think we should be looking at a division, I think we should try and avoid doing it, where we have our Canadian bred students easily accessing the choice of online or in person, and online only being an international option, especially noticing the difficulties we've been talking about time zones, about access, all of these things. And that's another one of my big fears going ahead. I think something needs to be done to actually provide that choice for the international students and to assist that their participation is a true choice and to assist their education being equivalent to that of our Canadian students. Because we are taking their money, offering their degree and making promises, we should own up to those and put their consideration primary into what we're doing in these designs as well. And not just reflect on our Canadian experience, like I'm saying, our local hybrid model, because 25% of our course component at University of Windsor is international students. They need to be in the mix from the very beginning for all of these considerations.
Okay, great. Very good point you made, Nina. So let's move on to Gina. You say you're from Saskatoon. I assume you're from University of Saskatoon, right?
Yeah, I'm at the University of Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan. Okay, great. So I'm wondering if you can share some information about what University of Saskatchewan have done or plan to do for the new semester coming, or the plan for the future.
Well, we are what they've done so far is they've had sort of, because we're a research institution, they tried to keep some research going, I believe, and you had to apply for permits to do, you had to kind of apply to have your class or your things in person. We're still closed. Everything is pretty much closed. I think that they've tried to, because there's research and experimentations going on. So I think that that's been one of the things. There's a gradual opening plan that they've put in place. And I don't even know what that looks like for the fall. With a blended learning idea, like that some will be face-to-face and some will be online. I'm with the language center, so our language center has been devastated, really. I actually have been laid off from my position as a cultural, myself and 5 teachers and another coordinator, because our numbers are so low. And with the gradual opening in the fall, I think they're still looking at what programs will be on campus and what will not, but there's a plan for that, and the actual full opening they're not predicting until January, which is quite far in the future. I don't know what other institutions are looking at, but that's what the U of S is looking like so far. So
yeah, okay, thank you, Tina. Yeah, I know that's not your university face the same issue. Our international students enrollment is getting low. I don't know if you heard of KISS, the Lawrence University. I think that's a big case. Yeah. Right? Yeah, big case. I saw Crystal. Crystal, do you want to see something? I noticed you have a chat message there.
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to come back into this session to check out. I was checking out the online learning too, because there's so many good sessions this morning. But I'm a master's student, and I've also worked as an advisor for 10 years. And I noticed recently talking to some international students about when we were you guys were talking the difference between domestic and international and how much stress is on them right now. And part of it is they don't feel that they can drop their courses, because at U of C, it's $500 for a domestic student to drop a course, but it's $2,000 for an international student. And so once they've started, they don't feel they can drop it because of how much money either their family or maybe their country is paying for. And so that was something, even working with international students, I never thought of, that they sometimes feel stuck in their choices, or they can't leave even though an instructor has said, if you can't participate or if you've gone home, you should drop the course. And yeah, so I just thought I would make that comment, because I think we don't look enough at the difference between domestic and international students and what their realities are as being students.
No. Oh, yeah, great. Thank you for sharing your student perspective on it. I know there's financial issues. It's definitely something we cannot overlook for international students. Yeah. So Adia, do you have some comment on, if we look forward, we're getting to the new normal. So I'm wondering, what's your perspective of the new normal in the post-secondary institutions?
So
in terms of teaching.
Yes, one of the things that I've actually said and been trying to push even in our own faculty is to offer our program remotely. And I know in the past we weren't ready for it, but I think one of the COVID benefits is kind of forced us into the future in terms of online learning far faster than we would have on our own without a pandemic. But I do feel that access, especially if this pandemic has taught us anything, there are global issues that can impact all of us. So if this happens again or something similar happens again, I think we need to be better prepared in terms of how we offer our programs and our courses. So I do feel that it is worthwhile to even pursue just strictly online options for students, and keep at least one stream or access available for students to be able to start and finish the program. And something that I brought up a few times is it's hard for students that are abroad to confirm offers to our program thinking about the future when they're unsure of how it's going to start kind of work itself out. So for students who started, for example, last fall, if their circumstance changed now and they can't physically come back or come to Canada, what happens to them? What happens to the year of learning that they invested in at the University of Windsor or whatever university they pursued? Can they continue? Can we guarantee them that, okay, you started in an online format, if you choose to, you may continue in an online format? And that was never something that we were able to offer our students. But I know that there are programs at other universities where they said, okay, if you start in an online format, we guarantee that you can finish the entire program online. And I think that security is really important for students as well. I was hoping that we would be more progressive at our own institution and be able to offer those kinds of securities for incoming students, especially international students that have to work with so many unknown variables. But we're just not there yet. But I'm hoping in the near future we can work towards that.
That's great, Nadia. I think I'm glad to hear your institution to thinking to offer more online courses. I think yes, as you nicely said, one of the positive part about it's a pandemic is really it's kind of force us to accelerate ourselves in online learning. So that reminded me one thing. In the last year, I think it's a Ministry of Education in Ontario required all the high school graduate students, they have at least take one online course during their 4-year high school. And so this policy really received a lot of critics from the public for many reasons. But after this pandemic, I feel the public's opinion about this requirement is going to be changed. So the public are going to realize that online learning is not just look at a screen. It's not wasting student time. It really is. It's a new skill to learn, for students to develop, and also it can be successful delivery of learning and teaching. Okay, great. So I have Dima here. Do you have any final comment, Dima, about this topic?
I actually agree with everyone, and I think that moving forward, it's very important and critical to keep open to different options and learning styles. To have the online, I think we need to expand it and explore it and see also other options. And how we can facilitate learning with our students, domestic and international students. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Is anybody want to make the final comments before we closing the session? Actually, I see Nadia is typing. Okay, great. I agree with you, Nadia. It's a very good discussion, and thank you all for the contributions. I know some are just joining, so and we going to have a short break, I think, right? So then we going to the concurrent session. So thanks again for joining the session and your great contributions. As we point out to the future direction for our research and practice. That's great. So I look forward to meet you in the rest of the conference. Okay, bye everybody.